Welcome to another episode of the BPN In Conversations with series. Now, this year, our theme is Dare to Dream. Now, over this series, you're going to be hearing from some remarkable Black and ethnic minority leaders from various industries who have dared to go after their own professional dreams. Now, you must know this by now, that our vision here at the BPN is to empower all Black and ethnic minority professionals to advance in their careers so that they can reach their full potential. Now, our intention with these conversations is to inspire you to do just that. And helping me today in doing that is Aisha Thomas. Hi, Aisha.
Hi, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm really well, and thank you very much for having me. I'm honored to be here, so thank you.
We're so pleased to have you. Thank you for saying yes to this conversation. So Aisha, I want to start by asking you, tell us a little bit about yourself and how and what you do and how you got into it.
So it's so interesting because I get this question all the time, and I really wish the journey was straightforward, that there would be a really simple answer. And unfortunately, I feel that my life is very much surrounded by purpose rather than position. So what am I doing right now? Right now, I am leading an organization called Matters Ltd. And my organization is very much committed to supporting senior leaders and also CEOs to look at the inclusion of their organizations, grappling with different lenses, different understandings to make sure that all employees really have a sense of belonging and inclusion. A real idea that they walk into their organization and have that self-actualization and genuinely feel a sense of belonging. Now, what's quite interesting is, how did I get here? Because it certainly wasn't a job I applied for, and it's now a business that I run independently. And I have to take you back a little way to university. So I studied law, and once I finished, I was working for a commercial law firm. Oh, got my words go tongue-tied. I was working for a commercial law firm. And when I was working for that firm, one of the things we were doing is we were doing some pro bono work with different organizations, and I was supporting the Prince's Trust. And one of the things I had the opportunity to do was work with young people who were in prison and really were kind of trying to get back into community. How could we help them transition? And I was working with one particular young man at the time, and he spoke to me about the fact that perhaps if I was his teacher, he wouldn't be in prison. And at the time, I didn't quite necessarily process all what he said and how loaded that comment was. But it was after, when he was talking about the fact that he saw me as perhaps a visitor, didn't think I'd be somebody in a position of authority, and said, you know, most of the people around him with significance and power were white. And he talked about only seeing Black people in media or sport or crime and then having any sort of position. And it really got me thinking about not just the lack of representation, but also over-representation. And when we see it, do we challenge it? And so I kind of had it in my mind that I was going to be this international lawyer, I was going to be this flamboyant auntie, and I had no expectations of going into education, but my mum was already a primary school teacher. And I began to realize that working in this particular area, I wouldn't be helping young people at an early enough point. I needed to kind of dismantle and deconstruct their pathway at a much earlier point in their journey. And therefore, I felt that helping them once it had gone wrong was not what I wanted to do. Instead, I wanted to help them before it had even got to that point. And so I began to transition from my legal career into a career within education and took all the steps necessary. And so I'd worked for an assistant principal for the last 8 years, and really enjoyed kind of working in an inner city school and helping young people to realize their aspirations and see someone who does look like them, someone perhaps who speaks the way they do, lived in the communities they've lived in, achieve a significant position within education. But that wasn't enough for me. I wanted to do more. And I realized that being in one school in a particular position limited how much I could do to really impact lives globally, nationally, and really, really outside of Bristol. And what I was able to then do was start a lot of kind of campaigning work alongside my day job. But I guess we got to a tipping point. And the tipping point was very much me deciding, did I want the position as assistant principal, or did I want purpose? And for me, purpose was more important. And so I wanted to create an organization that allowed me to take this further than the one classroom I was in, take it further than the one school, take it further than the one trust. And now within my organization, I'm not only helping education sector, but I'm working in other sectors too, helping them to challenge the identities that they have within their organizations, allowing them to really think about what it means to self-actualize and belong, but also helping them to realize the profit margins that could also be available to them if they would truly understand diversity and inclusivity, and realize that we don't need a culture fit. What we need is to appreciate the culture that the individuals add.
Wow, that's a remarkable journey. Thank you for sharing that. So what we've just heard is from legal, working in the law firm, to doing some volunteering with prison, and then realizing, hey, I want to make a greater impact when it comes to representation, going into that, being an assistant principal, and then now starting your own business.
Yes.
Wow, that sounds like quite a journey. So
Yeah.
in that entire timeline of basically reinventing yourself, coming into this position where you're campaigning and making representation, something that we really see as something that matters. I imagine you've come across a lot of challenges, a lot of barriers, roadblocks. What strategies have you used along the way? You can start from whichever area you want. What strategies did you use to navigate those roadblocks, to actually get to this place where you are and making this amazing impact that you are making in people's lives and organizations and people's lives as individuals?
I think what's been interesting for me is the self-reflection work. And self-reflection is something that's really important and something that I've had to do lots of times. And one of the things that I think I did first of all was hold that mirror up. My idea of what success meant, my idea of what I wanted to achieve, my idea of position and power, my understanding of privilege, all of those different elements were things I had to reckon with and really ask myself, why do you think these things are important? What do they mean for you? And really break them down. So I guess one of my strategies was almost treating myself like a brand and saying, okay, Aisha, let's look at yourself as an individual. What is it? What's your vision? What's your values? Let's be very clear. What is your unique selling point? What are you trying to achieve? Who are your customers? Who are your clients? And I did that in every aspect of my life, right? From when I was, in my legal career to education to now running my own business, because I wanted to be very clear that I was in alignment with my vision and values. I wanted to be very clear that I had a smart ideas around how I was going to achieve what I was going to do. And I had very clear goals and milestones on how I was going to get there. I'm quite a methodical thinker. And it's interesting because my legal training has really helped. When I worked in a law firm, you had to kind of charge every 6 minutes of your time. So I'm used to understanding that time is money. I am used 100%. To understanding billing all of the different things that you do. So I guess a strategy for me was being very clear about how much time I have, what I can achieve within that, what would be the best route to take that was going to be the most beneficial to me. But what was really important for me was who was around me. And I always talk to people about who is in your team. And that was really important for me to tackle barriers and challenges. So it's about who is that friend that you have who supports you, has your back, always cheerleading you. Who is the person who is your mentor, who is doing what you want to do, who is ahead of you in the journey, who you can look up to, believe and follow and see where their pathway has taken them. Who is your sponsor? Who is the person who perhaps can open doors for you, create situations, put you in rooms that you would never have been in? Who is your ally? Perhaps someone who doesn't have your lived experiences, who doesn't have the barriers or challenges you have, but they can champion your voice when your voice isn't being heard. And then finally, for me, it was about having a therapist. And I absolutely recommend everybody has a therapist, whether you're in crisis or not, because it's having that therapeutic support that helps you with your mental health and well-being to keep you grounded. And it's all of those different elements, all of those different people who have supported me so that whatever the barrier, whatever the challenge, they have helped to keep me on the right pathway to ensure I can actually manifest and achieve the goals that I set out for myself.
There is so much in there that I want to pick up on, but I don't think we'll have the time. So we're going to discuss all of that offline. So sorry, guys, you're not going to get the benefit of my Kiki injection in there, right? I want to pick up on one thing. You just changed the word therapy to therapeutic support. Therapy is something that people see as a stigma. But you've just said having therapeutic support. Oh my God, I have never heard that before.
It's massive. It's changed my whole life. It's changed my attitude. It's changed my core beliefs. It's changed the way even I deliver my training with organizations, because I think we are taught so much about mental health in such a negative way. You know, if something bad is happening to you, you're having a bad day, you know, most people wouldn't dare ring up their organization and say, oh, I'm not feeling good today. They'd rather lie and say I've got a cough or a cold, because they don't want people to know that perhaps today they're shaken to their core.
Oh my God, that's me.
But the reality is we all have mental health. You know, we all have to grapple with whether it's good or bad. We all have to deal with imposter syndrome, how we're feeling. We all have bouts of depression, and sometimes it manifests itself into actually a medical condition that needs to be addressed.
Yeah.
And so for that very reason, a therapist will help you to really get that deep level of support, to really reckon with who you are and what you need to deal with. And sometimes what we don't unpack and what we don't realize is how much travels through us. So this is a little side note, but really interesting. I'm really looking into epigenetics, which is this idea that transfer trauma, that it can go through your body from generation to generation. Now, this idea that actually sometimes, you know, you just feel something and you don't know why you feel it. Sometimes it's not your lived experience. It can be ancestral, something that has come from before, but you don't know how to deal with it. But that can become a barrier in your career, in your job role, in an investment opportunity, in the way in which you even describe your business. And you need to be able to look at your upbringing, your funds of knowledge, your culture, because all of those things are affecting the way in which you engage with your audience. And so it's really important to check on that and check on who you are.
And having a therapist helps with all of that stuff. You can
Absolutely.
It can help bring self-awareness to some of those issues that you're having.
Absolutely.
Right? I'm just still reveling in therapy is therapeutic support. Like, it just literally removes the stigma in one twist of that word. It removes the stigma of I've got a mental health problem and I need to talk to a therapist. But actually, I have a mental health problem and I need therapeutic support. I love that so much better. It's just that simple. Thank you for sharing that. Now, I imagine in all of this journey, still sticking with the challenges and the roadblocks and all of that.
Yeah.
As you were hurdling through all of that, because I can't imagine it was easy, what was driving you to just keep going to get to this point where you have a business and you're actually campaigning and doing, like you said, working in your purpose, living in your purpose?
It's quite simple for me. It's my children. So, being a single mother of 2 children and really wanting them to understand the skin that they're in. I have 2 Black boys, and I am completely aware of the stigma attached to what it means to be a Black man in today's society, particularly within westernized communities. And so from that position, I have to be very aware of how my work impacts potentially the opportunities that they may experience and what they may have access to. And so my children, but children in general, are driving me because they are the next generation. They are our future leaders. They are the people who will make the decisions about how the world continues to grow and develop. And if we don't instill better in them, the same rhetoric, we keep perpetuating the same problems. And so if we can change children now, if we can give them the tools, the skills, if we can dismantle some of the pain and negativity that they currently have, then perhaps they can grow in a better way and feel much more empowered to not keep, continuing to make the mistakes of generations before. And that's my drive. It's simple. It's our children.
I think that's an amazing drive. And actually there's 2 things. It's not just your children, but it's also securing the future for the next generation. If we don't build them up now, we're just going to left with the same mess that we have right now. Let's build better. Let's leave this place better than we found it. I think that's just wildly inspiring. Thank you for that. Now, what has been your greatest growth moment in your professional career, and what events would you say led to it?
So that is such an interesting question. Okay, so I would say my greatest growth moment is the fact that my pathway has not been straight.
Yeah.
In that I have continued to smash ceilings that perhaps people never felt I could. Smash ceilings that people would never possibly consider. And I've not allowed those barriers or challenges to prevent me. So, and what I find, because I work on divine purpose, as opposed to perhaps being very linear and binary in my decision-making processes, I am not scared to take a risk. And I guess risks of what really have opened the doors for me as time goes on. So even when I was moving from my educational jobs I'd gone for before I'd gone to my most recent job at the school I was working at, I saw that job application literally 12 hours before it was due to close. And I was like, should I do it? Should I not? Do you know what? I'm just going to go for the job. Great, let's go for it. Right, I'm in, I get it. The next thing I do is I create the job I want to do. I make it very clear to them that, yeah, this is a job you've recruited me for, but I see that I could do this, and here are the opportunities. I present that to the senior leadership team. They consider that, they take me on, they give me that opportunity. You know, I am not afraid to kind of volunteer my services. So before I became a senior leader, I said to them, you know, could I work for you from an internship perspective and learn all what I need to do to become a senior leader? So when the position comes up, I am ready to do that. Wow. Even though I knew everyone else in the room was being paid 2 or 3 times more than me, it didn't bother me, because in that moment, I knew the long-term payoff if I could gain the skill set that I required whilst I was in the current job I was in. All of these sorts of things prepare you. Even the job I have now, or should I say the profession I have now, the business I'm running, that was a risk. You know, I left a senior leadership position that was full-time and extremely well paid to start my own business. But it's because I knew what the purpose was within this. And my business is flourishing and growing, and I'm booked and I'm busy. So the reality is, for me, it's purpose. I keep saying it to you, it's purpose over position. The moment you allow your greater purpose to come before being tied to a job, being tied to a specific salary or a particular opportunity, you allow abundance to come through. I try not to start my life from deficit in terms of what I don't have. Instead, I try and start from abundance. These are all the things I'm trying to achieve, and what steps do I need to take to get there? So my biggest growth moment was abundance over deficit.
Nice. I love that summary. I love that word abundance. It just defines everything that I think the world should be. It's abundant, right? I love that. I love that. Thanks for sharing that. Now, my next question is this. If you were to summarize your life, highlighting 3 key influences, whether it's situations or people, that have shaped the person that you are today, what would you say?
Oh, that's a really, really
It's a loaded question.
That is a loaded question. And I've got so many things that I could possibly say. And I'm sure I'm going to get off the call from you and think, oh, I should have said that. Oh, I should have said that. But I think if I'm going to be really honest about the actual influences in my life, I will say 1, becoming a mother. For me, it's quite interesting. I was never a person who said, oh, I want to be a mom, I want to have children, I want to have a massive family. That was never in the plan. As I said, I was going to be this rich auntie traveling the world as this international lawyer. That was the plan. But the reality is, what I realized is that having children gave me value. For me personally, having children made me realize that I now have responsibility to deliver a greater purpose for someone else, and that they were watching me, and that what I did was going to have a direct impact, if on nobody else, on the 2 lives of the 2 people that I've got responsibility for. And so for me, my children have shaped who I am. They've shaped the things that I value and the things that I don't. They've shaped the way I challenge myself, my thinking, my behaviors, my attitudes. They are constantly my default checking point. So they are extremely important to me. So they've definitely been a highlight in terms of my career and my choices. I would say the second thing has to be the young man I met in prison. And it's a shame because I don't know who he is. I can't remember his name. I barely probably could remember what he looked like. But what I do remember was how he made me feel. And in that moment, he made me realize that life was more important than the money and the status. And he made me realize that when we focus on those things, when we focus on hierarchy and majority and dominance, we don't realize the people that are left behind. And he shook my entire career. You know, he shook my thinking. He shook the way in which I engage with the world. And that was really, really important to me. And then what I would say, probably my third influence, and I would say it's not a person or a situation, but I would say it's my faith. And my faith has been important to me because my faith is what's kept me grounded in morals and values and principles. And it's quite interesting because many of the thought leaders that I could reference to you now also have a similar thinking in terms 100%. Of faith and love and unity 100%. And understanding. And so rather than naming individual people, I will say as a collective, faith and that divine intervention has been extremely important to the person I am today. It's what reminds me to keep going. And I'll often remind myself, Aisha, if you can just have faith as small as a mustard seed, you will get through this. Amen. Even in my darkest days. So what I would say is, faith has definitely kept me safe, kept me alive, kept me grounded, and kept me going. And ultimately, you can see it in everything that I do. People say, where do your passion and purpose come from? It comes from the divine. And it's that simple for me.
That's right. That's 100% preach. I love that. I just wrote something down that you said, my default check-in point. Your children became your default check-in point. I love that. I think everyone needs a default check-in point. Where is that place that you go, the way you go? Am I still being the person that I want to be? Am I still on purpose? Am I living my values? Who or what situation is your divine check-in, your default check-in point? I love that.
And they are not afraid to check mummy. They are not afraid to say it. And it's so interesting. So and I talk to my children a lot. My son, I was talking to him about like toxic parenting and things. And he was like, oh, mummy, is that a bit of toxic parenting over there? I'm like, but yeah, he will hold me to account. So, I want my children to feel that we're not friends. Let's be real. We're not friends. I'm not here to be your friend. I'm not here to, hang out with you. But what I am here to do is allow you to have a voice and for you to feel that you can also comment on the woman that I am as your mother and what I'm representing and how I'm holding you to account as much as you're holding me to account. So yeah, I appreciate them for checking me.
I love that. I mean, they came from you, so they're going to have a bit of mummy sass as well.
Oh, yes, definitely.
I love that. Okay, so now here is a chance to brag. Here's a chance to brag about something that you have done in your professional career that you would like us to know about. So what impact have you made in your professional career are you most proud of?
You're giving me too much choice. Okay, I'm going to be naughty and I'm going to say two things. I would say from an individual perspective, obviously because of child safety, I can't name any names, but what I would say is when individual children can come up to you and say, Miss, you made me feel that I belong. That for me is something that money can't buy. That is something that you can't be taught. It doesn't matter how many degrees, masters, doctorates, whatever you have. The reality is when a child looks at you eye to eye and you almost see their soul and they're saying to you, Miss, you see me, I see you, and you're a representation of what I want to become, and I value for everything that you do. That's priceless. That's money can't buy. So for me, knowing that within my career, I've created purpose and that these children now have something that they can go on with and that they're almost their baton passing. I give them the baton and they keep it going. That's priceless for me. So I'd say that's probably children are the most kind of important thing to my career from that perspective. But I'd also say the other thing is my TED Talk. When I tell you, I manifested my TED Talk. So I'm a TED fan, been watching that for years and years and years and years, watching TED, bought the book, went to many different TED audiences, and I just kept saying, that's going to be me, that's going to be me, that's going to be me. And the reality was in 2019, I got to stand on the TEDx stage and speak my truth. And that for me was awesome. And whatever people took away from that TED, and lots of people took away different things, it was controversial for some. The reality is it was me speaking my truth in a public forum. And that I am forever proud of.
I love that. I watched your TED Talk. So you will be the only ever TED speaker that I've ever spoken to in real life. So I feel privileged. It was a brilliant TED Talk. So that was really good. And I learned a lot from it because I didn't grow up in this country, and I learned a lot from, what you were sharing about growing up here and some of the experiences. So that was like one of my first experiences. I think it was there that I heard the word microaggression for the first time. And I had to Google it to find out what it was. So.
What's she talking about?
I'm like, I don't know what she's talking about. So I had to Google it. So it was a brilliant TED Talk, and thank you for speaking your truth in there. So now I want to ask you, what practical advice would you give to our BPN members to inspire them to dare to dream, to go after their own dream and achieve what they want to in their own professional careers, just like you have?
The first thing and the most simple thing is just be honest with yourself. And one of the practical ways to do this, and I like to get a big sheet of paper out, just put your name in the middle and start to think about all the different aspects of your life. So everything from your financial to family to romance to career to belief, because all of these things impact on your career. Sometimes we try and create a career plan, but almost try and separate every other aspect of your life. But your finances, your family, your relationships, all of those elements will seep into the career pathway that you can have, what you believe you can achieve, what you think is possible. And so I don't think it should be done in isolation. And I think it's about you really thinking about all of those elements that really are important to you and almost giving yourself mini goals for those different slices of your pie. What I'd also say is I always get people, particularly when I do my leadership course with women, is I get them to ask people around them to give them 2 or 3 words that describe you. So what are the things that you think I'm like? What are my qualities? What are my skills? Because you'd be quite surprised as to what people perceive and see from you versus what you think they see. And so it's quite interesting to kind of give yourself an opportunity to kind of do a bit of a 360 review, speak to colleagues, speak to friends, speak to family, and just see if there are any trends. What are the things that people keep saying about you? And perhaps what are the things that they don't mention? So I think that's quite interesting. The other thing I get people to do is create, have a picture of an iceberg. And if you could imagine the waterline, what are the things above the water that people know about you? What are the things that they see and hear that is out in the world? But what are all the other things underneath that you wish you could share? What are the other things that you might be good at, the skill set you might have that perhaps you haven't shared for whatever reason, or perhaps your current job doesn't allow you to fulfill that skill set? And just really begin to think about, okay, so if I could, I'm starting from abundance here, if I could really share these skills, which ones would I want to share? What would I want to do? What might it look like? So you could have someone, for example, who is really amazing at social media in their personal life, but never shares that with their employer. For all you know, you could have an opportunity in social media marketing and branding, but because you never share it, you just stick to the day job of what you do and you don't, deviate from there. It could be someone who is really great at public speaking. They might do a lot of that in their personal life, and yet when they're in the boardroom or when they're in the office or the classroom, they barely speak. They almost feel, that their voice is not being heard. So it's about allowing you to really think about, what are all the facets of me? What are the things that make me me? And are those things all in alignment? Because I talk about this thing called the triple consciousness. And that's about, who are you as an individual behind your front door? Right. So if nobody else knew, what makes you you? What makes you happy? Mm-hmm. What do you enjoy? What inspires you? When you step into your organization, what are you then? And how much do those things differ? How much do you hold back? How much don't you bring to the table? And then the final bit is, how do you navigate yourself within the wider world? How does that impact on your career pathway? So for example, if you were in the medical industry, are those 3 things in harmony? Who you are at home, who you are in your job, and who you are in the medical profession? Because if it doesn't, then there's an issue. Yeah. And you need to start looking at how you can align all of those elements to give the best version of you. And if they are in alignment, are you maximizing your opportunities to succeed? Or are you just staying coasting and staying where it's safe?
Right. Wow. Those are some real cracking strategies. I mean, I was writing some of them down, and I'm going to come back and I'm going to be doing the iceberg exercise. So guys, I hope you caught that too. I hope you're going to do your own iceberg exercise. But I think that's a very, very, I would say, vulnerable thing for people to go in there and look at the things beneath the, the waterline, the things you could share, and then think, which one do I want to share? So guys, this is a challenge, right? This is the Dare to Dream challenge from BPN. Definitely. You are going to be doing that exercise and figuring out the things that you can share, because I'll be doing the same. I'll be challenging myself to do the same. So Aisha, as we're coming to the end of this session with you, we here at the BPN, we love having fun. So our fun question for you to answer is this. Since our theme here is Dare to Dream this year, if you could have any superhero power, which power would you choose and why?
Oh, goodness. There's so many to choose from. Oh, there's so many to choose from. It's interesting because I feel that the very superpower I wish I could have, I think I almost do already.
Nice.
And it's the ability to shapeshift, the ability to code switch. And I think, imagine being able to immerse yourself in any environment and feel that you can be there and be your best self in that environment. You totally, almost a bit like a chameleon, you're fitting into the background wherever you are. And it's quite interesting because when I think about that, that is something, particularly as Black women, I think we have to do. We find ourselves with this innate power to shapeshift into every environment and find ourselves adapting because we know of the barriers and challenges of what it means to be Black, but also what it means to be female. And so I think that is a superpower that we already have. but I don't think we give ourselves enough credit for our ability to get into different environments and still succeed wherever we are. And I think that's really important for us to recognize. So whilst I kind of cheated a little bit in the sense that it's not this, you know, I'm not flying through walls or, you know, shooting people through my eyes or anything like that. But what I will say, it's the power to understand my environment. And I don't mean I want to fit in, but I want to be able to integrate, have a voice, feel empowered. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a skill set that we have within ourselves already, but we just don't maximize it as much as we could.
I think that is just a brilliant superpower. And you're right. We all seem to have it, but we don't use it as much. Because I remember in secondary school, my yearbook, one of my friends wrote that I'm a chameleon. And I was very offended by that. But actually, as time went on, I came to see that as a superpower. My ability to fit in any, not fit in, but feel like I can still be myself in any situation. And I love that you just highlighted that shape-shifting as a superpower. So there you have it. Do not be ashamed to shape-shift because, hey, it's a superpower, according to our guest here, Aisha Thomas. Aisha, I am very, very excited to have had this chat with you. I've had so much fun. I've learned so much. I was making notes, and I'm going to come back and do that iceberg exercise because I think it's a brilliant exercise to do. So thank you so much for joining us for this conversation. And guys, you heard it from her. You heard it from Aisha here. There is a lot to learn from this conversation. Go ahead and do the exercises, follow the strategies, because at the end of the day, what we're challenging you to do is dare to dream. That's a wrap from me, guys. Follow us on our Facebook page, join our Facebook group, on LinkedIn, follow us as well. And most of all, subscribe to our mailing list so that you never miss a conversation from us. Aisha, thank you again so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
All right, guys, that's a wrap. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.